Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's fine. It's a new week. Hope everybody is having a great morning. I want to welcome you to the Cámara Peruana de Comercio Exterior and its daily lectures. Um, Today we're going to talk about presentations. But before, I wish that everybody's healthy and safe. And good morning, even though we're going through some difficult times, we need to keep the faith and hope that the people who govern us will make the decisions that are better for everyone and not just a small group. So again, I want to welcome you to to the Cámara Peruana de Comercio Exterior's lectures. Remember that our English lectures are on Monday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Today we're going to talk about, like I mentioned before, presentations, structures, and key phrases or expressions that you can use whenever you make a presentation. Okay, again, remember that this is business English for specific purposes, in this case, English. And we're going to mention some phrases, some expressions, but specifically, we're going to talk about general ideas of English related to businesses. At some point, we're going to, again, go back to general English topics, grammar, vocabulary, and that sort of those sort of things or topics. But today we're going to talk about, or in general, we're going to talk about topics related to business. Okay, so when we want, I just want to let you know who I am, just in case you don't know. My name is Carlos Martinez. I am an English instructor and also a speaking coach. I'm a former team leader from Pacifico University at its language center, and currently I am an EFL teacher at Mater Purísima School in Miraflores. Remember that I can follow your questions in Zoom and also through Facebook. Okay, so if you have any questions, I will try to answer them as soon as possible through Facebook chat. Sometimes it takes a little while for me to get your questions, but like I said, I will try to answer your questions as soon and as quickly as possible. Okay, so let's begin. I'm pretty sure that everybody in the business area and most everyone watching these videos has had to give a presentation once in their lives. I remember that, well, it all starts when we are in school, right? When we have to, when our teachers tell us to give a presentation on certain topics or biology, history, whatever the topic is, or sometimes we had to read books and give presentations about summaries of the books. And then this came back to, this happened again when we were in university. And then depending on your career, it has happened more than once. In the business area, it happens a lot because we have to present plans and we have to present proposals for whatever business area we're in. First thing, relating this topic to my personal experience, I would say that one of the key factors is that gives you security is the knowledge of the topic. The better the knowledge you have of a certain topic, the better your presentation will be. First of all, because it gives you confidence. And second, because what sometimes makes us, lose our feet is when the people who are listening to our presentation start to ask questions. And if we are not prepared to either answer the question or manage the question, then sometimes we lose faith in ourselves and our presentations can be affected. So what we're going to do today is just talk a little bit about how presentations are given. And I'm pretty sure all of us will feel identified at some point during this presentation about things that we mention or things that we do or should do. Okay, so let's begin. Presentations. Today, we're going to talk about some aspects of giving presentations. The first thing that we're going to mention is the thing that, like anything, is the introduction, right? There's a formal way of introducing ourselves. There's an informal way of introducing ourselves. And our introduction can be simple or can be detailed. Okay, we're going to mention those things. The another thing that we're going to mention is how we introduce the topic. Okay, how it's important to capture our listeners' attention, how because it's important to make it relevant, and some points or some keys about what it makes a good speaker and what makes a bad speaker in general. Okay, it's very important to capture people's attention, and that goes for everything: formal presentations, or when you talk to your team, or when you talk to your students. For in my case, right, we need to make this, we need to make the topic relatable to our listeners to capture their interest. Next, well, this is more like just a structure, um, the parts of representation and how it goes from beginning to end. Then we're going to talk about signposting. Okay, this is a technique that can be used to help you during your presentations. It'll help you and also the listeners. Okay, it gives it kind of a structure. And finally, problems that we might have during our presentation, correcting mistakes, answering questions, and solving one or two problems that might appear during our presentations, okay? So these are the five topics that we're going to mention today. I'm going to try to, like I said, make it as understandable as possible. But again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me via Facebook or via Zoom, okay? I will try to answer your questions as quickly as possible or as soon as I receive them. Like I said, sometimes the questions are delayed, okay? So I'm reading you here and I'm reading you in Zoom, wherever you feel more comfortable. So let's begin. Formal, informal, detailed, and simple introductions, okay? So like anything, depending on who you're talking to, depending on what you're talking about, presentations can be formal and informal. Normally, in business, presentations are formal because they tend to be. That is the trend. Okay, but there's also an informal way of presenting yourselves. So, for example, I'm going to give you an example. One formal way of presenting yourself can be, good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Carlos, and I work in the administration department. So you are just presenting yourself in a formal way to your coworkers or to whoever is listening to you in the lecture that you're giving. Another way could be like this. Hello, everybody. Before we begin, let me introduce myself briefly. I am Pilar, and I am the head of HR, Human Resources. Okay, so these are two simple and formal ways of presenting yourselves to your listeners, to your audience. Okay, even though it's short, it is still formal. Um, so this is like a template. You can use it. You can change it. You can modify your name. You can modify their department or the area where you're from. But these are, like I said, simple and formal ways of presenting yourselves. And just like we have formal way of presenting ourselves, we also have an informal way of presenting ourselves. Again, this totally depends on who you're talking to and the nature of the presentation. Okay, some things need to be formal because they need to be formal, and sometimes we can be a little bit informal. In case, a couple of informal way of presenting yourselves could be like this. Hello, I see some new faces, so I'll introduce myself first. I'm Julio, and I'm one of our customer service team. Okay, so this is an informal way of presenting yourself. Another way could be like this. Hi guys, if you don't know me, I'm Sylvia and I work in digital marketing. Okay, notice the difference in the presentation. In one, we say, hi guys, because this is typical of an informal conversation. Whereas in the formal conversation, as you can see, good morning, everyone, hello, everyone, or everybody. Okay, they might seem short, but they are, even though they're simple, it's still formal. Okay, so notice what makes it formal, informal is basically the words and the way you present yourself and the way you introduce yourself. Okay, so again, these are two ways of presenting yourself in a formal manner and here are two ways of presenting yourself in an informal manner. Okay. Again, the formality or informality depends on the topic and who you are talking to. Normally in business, it's going to be formal, but still, it's always good to know both ways, whether or not I mean, if you want to always use your formal presentation, that's fine. There's no problem with that. Okay, but it's always good to know that there's another way, and it totally depends on who you are talking to. Okay, next, as we mentioned before, the presentation can be simple or it can be detailed. Okay, when we make a simple presentation, normally it's one sentence, whether or not it's long or short, it is still one sentence. Okay, so one idea. When we talk about sentences, we talk about an idea and everything that maybe in a sentence or the main idea has dependent information. Okay, that is basically related to the main idea of the topic. For example, here. Today, I'm going to be talking about our new HR policies and how they affect you. Okay, this is very simple. I'm going to talk about this and how and its effect on you. Okay, simple and direct. Another way could be like this. I'd like to talk to you today about quality control and why we're all responsible for quality control, whichever department you work in. So the main topic is quality control. I mean, they're going to talk about quality control and why we're all responsible for it. And it doesn't depend. It doesn't depend which department you work in. So these are very simple topic presentations. Okay, you're just mentioning what you're going to say. Maybe maybe an idea related to it, because like I said, the main idea in this case, in the first topic presentation, the main idea are the new HR policies, and everything else is related to the HR policies. The main idea in the second presentation topic presentation is quality control, as you can see, and just who is responsible for it, and so on. Okay, so these are very simple presentations. Okay, it's a one big sentence or one short sentence where we have a main idea and one or two things related to it. But just like we have formal and informal, we can have simple and we can have more complex presentations and more details. Okay, so here, it says complex presentation topics, and we add more details to break your ideas into stages. So now basically you're going to say this, then this, and then this. Okay, but still we're not talking, this is still not our main idea. This is still not our main presentation. We are presenting the topic. This is the part that comes after who I am, right? Hi everybody, my name is Carlos and I work in this department, and today we're going to talk about this. Okay, so here we have a complex example. I'm going to read it. I'll begin by outlining the policies, and then I'll go on to highlight what they mean for you and your working habits. Finally, I will briefly discuss why we feel these new policies are necessary and beneficial for us all. So here, immediately, first, I'll begin by outlining the policies. First stage. Then I'll go on to highlight what they mean for you and your working habits. Second stage. Finally, I'll briefly discuss why we feel these policies are necessary and beneficial. Third stage. So I'm basically telling you, like a book, your index. These are the things that I'm going to talk about. Okay. Now, in the first part, in the simple one, I'm going to talk about HR policies. Very general, very broad idea. This is more complex. Now I'm giving you detailed information of the stages of my speech. First, the outline the policies. Second, highlighting what they mean for you. Third, I'm going to discuss the new why we feel they are necessary. Okay, I'm going to give you another example here. First of all, I'll explain why quality control has a broader meaning than you might expect. I'll continue by giving examples of real quality control and why this matters for all of us. To finish, I will be asking you to think of ways you can incorporate quality control into your working habits. Okay, so notice the difference. Okay, notice the difference. Here again, first of all, I'll explain why, etc. I will continue by giving examples, etc. To finish, I will be asking you to think of ways you can incorporate etc. Okay, so in these two ways of presenting the topic, I am telling you what I'm going to do first, then, and finally. Here, he literally says, I will begin by. Here, she says, first of all. Here, he says, and then I'll go on. And here, she says, I will continue by giving examples. He uses the word finally, and she uses the expressions to finish. So these are two ways of detailing or presenting your topic in a complex manner. Notice again, no, compare it, okay? Let's compare first the gentleman's presentation, okay? In the simple presentation, today I'm going to be talking about our new HR policies and how they affect you. Very simple, very direct. In the complex presentation, I will begin by outlining policies, then I'll go to highlight. Finally, I'll briefly discuss, etc. Notice how it's the same thing, just one way it's simple and one way it's more complex. The same happens for the lady who's presenting her topic here. I'd like to talk to you today about quality control and why we're all responsible for quality control. Very simple, very direct. In her more complex presentation, first of all, I explain why quality control has a broader meaning. I'll continue by giving examples of real quality control, and to finish, I'll ask you to think of ways you can incorporate, etc., etc. So notice how the same thing can be said in two ways. Simple way, I'm going to talk to you about this. Complex way, first I'll say this, then I'll say this, and finally I'll say this. Okay, so it depends. It totally depends on how you feel comfortable. Again, who you're talking to. If you think that it is necessary for people to know the stages, because maybe one of these stages is relevant for a group. Okay, because for example, let's see the gentleman's presentation. Maybe for me, when I hear the expression beneficial for all of us, then, oh, there's a benefit for me. I'm going to listen. I'm going to pay attention because there's something that's beneficial for me. Or the ladies presentation. Okay, I'm going to be asking you if you of ways you can incorporate quality control to your working habits. Maybe I think I have the need, or I feel that I need to include quality control in my habits, in my working habits. So hey, this is interesting for me. Okay, so here I'm capturing the interest of whoever is listening to my presentation. Okay, but again, you decide which of the two you want to use and which of the two works better for you. So here are some templates. Whenever you begin a presentation, I will begin by, and then you complete the sentence. Okay, these are templates. Finally, first of all, I will continue by, remember you can say I will. Okay, these contractions is a contraction for I will. Normally it is said that contractions should always be avoided in formal speaking. This will also declare the formality or informality of something, but it's not like a strict law. Okay, it can be a formal presentation and I can still use some contractions, but you should avoid them as much as possible. But again, I will. You can say I'll begin by, or I will begin by, and then I will, or and then I'll. Finally, I'll, or finally I will. First of all, I'll. First of all, I will. I will continue by, or I'll continue by. And to finish, I'll. To finish, I will. Okay, so these are some templates to begin to start your presentation, of course, after you have presented yourself to your listeners. Now, when you can practice these things, I mean, you can do it in two ways. First, you can practice by introducing yourself informally and explaining the topic in a simple way with one sentence. And then you can do the opposite, practice it formally and explaining the topic in a more detailed way. You can do this in front of a mirror, or you can do this in front of a friend. But I think the best way to do it is by recording yourself. Luckily, our cell phones have voice recording. So whenever you make a presentation, record yourself. And when you finish, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself doing both ways. You're going to the ear recognizes me. I mean, the best way is like your ear is going to tell you, this doesn't work. Let's try it again. Okay, so you can do two things at once. First of all, you can listen to yourself to see which of the two ways works better for you, but also you can listen to yourself if you're pronouncing correctly, if you're using the correct words, if your intonation is correct, if your voice is going up in the correct moment and going down in the correct moment. So recording yourself is very helpful whenever you want to practice a presentation. Okay, very good. Let's continue. Now, as I mentioned before, oh yeah, you can record a video too. Well, yes, I mean, anything that lets you see or hear how you're doing things, right? Although nowadays with Zoom and with our virtual presentations, sometimes the most you can see is your hands. But still, yes, it's always good to record, to be able to see yourself or hear yourself doing these things, so you can see where you're making the mistakes or how you can improve. Now, what makes a good speaker and a bad speaker? Okay, a good speaker takes their audience seriously and tailors a speech to them. When I say tailor, is like you make it for this group of people. I remember when I first started in teaching English, I had 3 classes, 3 different groups, the same class for 3 different groups. It was a basic 5, I think, but for 3 different groups. It was my first class ever in my whole life. I prepared my lesson plan like teachers do, like you have to do. You know, nothing can be improvised. Because in my inexperience, I thought that lesson plan was going to help me for the 3. I was like, oh, wow, so easy. 1 lesson plan for 3 classes. When I began my lesson plan with my first class, I noticed that I had to change some things because this lesson plan did not adapt too well to this class. Okay, so now I adapted my lesson plan. Now my lesson plan is perfect because I had tested it, I had adapted it. Now it is perfect. I went to my second class and I had to adapt it again because this class was different from my first class. Okay, so now after my second class, now my lesson plan is perfect because I had adapted it twice. I had tested it with 2 different groups. Now it's perfect. Eventually, when I get to my third class, I had to re-change it again. I had to make new modifications because this group was totally different than the first and the second. So, and even then, I mean, I'm pretty sure that if I had 10 classes, I would have had to change it 10 times because I need to make my speech, I need to make a presentation to the group that I am presenting it to. I can't think of a presenter who says, okay, my presentation is ready and it's going to be the same if I present it to people in Peru, to people in Chile, to people in Bolivia, to people in the USA or Europe or Asia, because people in these different places have different things that are important to them, okay, and their needs, their interests are different. So we need to make our speech to specific, tailor-made to whoever we're talking to. Okay, they also work both hard and smart using careful chosen words, an uncomplicated organizational pattern, and a well-crafted introduction and brief but memorable conclusion. So we need to work on these things. Choosing the correct word is relevant, totally relevant. Could you imagine if I tried to use the same vocabulary in a socialist government than in a right-wing government? I might make mistakes. Could you imagine talking to a company that has that includes unions to a company that doesn't include unions? I'm going to make a mistake. Okay, I need to know who I'm talking to, and I need to prepare. I need to prepare a specific vocabulary, a specific content for each and every group that I speak to. Okay, and again, I need to make my pattern uncomplicated, very simple, and make it, like I said, memorable. Okay, why is this important? Why am I investing 1 hour, 2 hours, or 45 minutes in listening to you? What am I gaining from this, right? Whereas on the opposite side, we have what we can say a poor. I included the word bad speaker, but it has to be, I would say it's a poor speaker because I don't consider that anybody's a bad speaker because it takes courage to stand in front of people and say things. But maybe it's poor. You need to prepare it better. Okay. A poor or bad speaker does not care enough about his or her audience to work both hard and smart in preparing a speech. The opposite of what I said before, right? I just prepare one and I say, okay, I'm going to use this one for everybody else, for the rest of my 10 presentations. So I'm not putting attention into the other 10 audiences that are going to listen to me. And that's going to pay, and that's going to backfire as soon as I stand in front of that group. Almost everyone can spend lots of hours researching a topic only to come up with a real yawner. I mean, yawn is like, when you're tired, yawner of a speech, okay? I can invest a lot of time in making a speech, but if I don't make it interesting for the people who are listening, then I'm gonna lose my audience quickly. Okay, and remember that nowadays with technology and all the stimulation that we have, um, your attention span, a human being's attention span has been reduced. The time that we can focus on one thing has been reduced. It is said that a child's attention span is lower than an adult's time span because an adult is more interested, is more responsible. But with all the stimulation that we have now, cell phones, computers, TVs, Netflix, Prime, Facebook, and all the information coming at us at the same time, we are totally, searching for what captures our attention. That's why sometimes when the typical example is when you sit in front of the computer, okay, I'm going to sit down and work, and you're about to type whatever you're going to do, and all of a sudden you say, hey, let's see what's on YouTube. You put YouTube, and you just realize you just spent 2 hours watching a video about the reaction to the latest Mandalorian episode, and you forgot to do what you're supposed to do. Okay, because our attention span has shortened. We need to captivate our listeners' attention and start changing the topic, quickly. That way, we don't lose their attention. It is proven. You can look it up. A human's attention span has been reduced a lot. Sometimes some people compare it even to goldfish time span, attention span. Look it up. Google it. So now, how to establish connection with listeners? There are three things that are there. I'm going to give you 3 examples. The first one is to establish a problem which many people in your audience have. So that way, this is what I mean when studying your audience. What problems does this audience have, or does this country or society or wherever I'm going to has? Then establish that you have a solution to their problem. For example, have you ever felt unfairly treated at work, or felt that work you do isn't appreciated? We've been working to design new HR policies that will make sure all staff get fair recognition for their contribution to the company. So here, immediately, I'm saying, yes, I'm feeling untreated. Yes, I feel that my work isn't appreciated. Immediately I'm feeling identified because this guy is talking to me. This guy is telling me things that are relevant for me, things that are important to me. Okay, so immediately I'm going to listen to you. Hey, this is important. Okay, so why? Because you're identifying. That's why it's important to know who you're talking to. Next, mention an interesting fact or a surprising statistic to get people's attention. Okay, sometimes some people even say tell a joke, or it depends. It depends on the person and whatever has worked for you in the past. But yes, it's important to mention interesting facts or information that were like, wow, I did not know this. Did you know that the average office worker spends 8 hours a day at work, but only does 4 hours of productive useful work? I'm here to tell you about quality control and how you can use this idea to make better use of your time. It's like you immediately, wow, yeah. You start to remember, okay, I enter to work at 7:30 and I finish at 4. But literally, I am sitting in my computer, listening to music and setting up my Spotify list, set list, more hours than I'm working. Wow. Immediately I feel identified. And I want to change it, of course, because that's not good. So boom, I'm focused on the topic. And finally, and this is more, again, you can recur to personalizing things, engage people by telling a short story and connecting it to your topic, okay? Stories are powerful, but okay, they're so powerful that if you chose the wrong story, they might go the opposite way, okay? So you need to be sure, whenever you tell a story, the story needs to be connected or related to to the topic, because you're only going to tell a story because you want to spend the time. You're going to be speaking here for an hour, and then my topic, I don't know what to say, so I'm just going to tell a story to let time run. Then you're going to lose more than you're going to win. And emotional dimension, if your topic, if you do it well, okay, you see, if you do it well. Example, I once met a young salesman. I won't mention his name. He spent several weeks building a relationship with potential clients. He worked overtime and he was working so hard that he was under severe stress, which started to affect his personal life. In the end, he didn't close the deal. The client signed with another firm. Today, I'm going to talk to you about confidence as a sales tool and how you can avoid traps that this young man fell into. Okay? So I'm telling you a story that didn't end well, and I'm going to give you the tools to make it end well. Okay? Again, this story is not a bad example, but again, remember that your story has to have a connection with whatever you're going to say. In this case, the story said that the man worked a lot but didn't get the results that he wanted. So it's like wasting my time, right? So he's going to give you strategies to avoid losing clients, like the man in the story. Okay, so these are three ways that you can establish connection. This goes, immediately, once you step in front of your audience, if you are able to capture their attention with one of these topics, then you will have half of of the success rate assured, because if you that's what you need people listening to you. And one way is to identify a problem that they have, to give them an interesting fact, or to tell a story that connects and is relevant to them. Okay, so remember to make sure that to investigate, to research the audience that you're going to present your well, redundant presentation in front of, and make sure that you know who you're talking to. It will totally change the outcome of your presentation. Okay, so again, these are things that you can take into account when you begin your presentation. Next, what is the structure? I'm going to give you the typical structure of a presentation. Okay, again, this is my point of view. You don't need, this is not the Bible, this is not mathematics where they cannot change. You can modify, you can add, you can see what works for you the best. So for me, the first is what I call the bang, what hooks. This is that like what is going to make the person wake up. Okay, what are you talking about? Okay, say something to get the attention to the audience, like a visual aid, a story, a joke, or surprising fact, like we mentioned before, right? This is how you're going to capture them. Like when you're fishing, you send in your bait. Okay. Next, the opening. Thank the organizers for the invitation. Some words about yourself, the topic, and the structure that we mentioned before, right? Hi, my name is Carlos, and I work at the Human Resources Department. Okay. Or you could give more information if you want. Like I said, formal or informal, simple or detailed presentation. Okay, what we mentioned at the beginning. Then we have the message. The main points of the presentation focus on the most important information to invest time. Okay, so of course a presentation can last an hour, but you're not going to talk about an hour about one thing. Maybe you're going to talk about 10 things. But they say that whatever number you have of topics in a presentation, you should always choose 3 and focus on those three and give them all the time necessary. And you can mention the rest. You can mention the rest in a less detailed manner. Okay, but always focused on the most important thing and invest most of your time in that. Okay, or on that. Next, we have the bridge. Well, like its name says, it's a bridge. A bridge, it makes clear to your audiences how your message connects to what their needs. This is the connection. You know what a bridge is, right? A bridge connects to um, to pieces of land where there's ocean. So you want to connect it to the car so people can go through it. So the bridge is the connection. Okay. So how this information helps you. Okay. Now I'm going to give you tips on how to improve your working hours. Okay. So this is what I'm going to do. Okay, next, recap. Recap is, well, short for recapitulation, okay? This is when you're almost finishing your presentation, okay? You have to make a summary of everything you said. Well, today we have seen this, and we have seen this, okay? And you're making people remember whatever for everything you said. And finally, your second bang, okay? So now you go back to the beginning. Remember how I told you I was going to help you? Remember how I said this was going to be good for you? Okay, so you're like, oh wow, yeah, remember, yeah. So it's like your second bullet. You're bringing them back, and you're saying, oh wow, you really did help me out. You really did tell me what I needed to hear. Okay, so this is my personal presentation structure. It helps out a lot, and you can use it. I mean, whenever you make your, it's always good. Well, to make a structure your presentation is not an option. You should always make a structure. Whether you need cue cards, whether you need write it on a piece of paper, whether you make it mentally, it doesn't matter. But you need the structure. You cannot just whatever and then whatever and then what If you're going to do it like this, then you're going to have problems because you need to have a structure. Because if you don't have structures, then people are just going to lose interest. And here comes, and this is related to our next, my next topic of presentation. Okay, does anybody know who this man is? I would say that this man, if you're a salesperson, that you might recognize him. And if you're into coaching, and I would say that this was one of the first coaching experts that I know of. This guy is Dale Carnegie. Okay, he's an American salesperson, but he was also a coach. He used to give people, he used to give lectures and presentations on how to give presentations, but also how to make better sales, how to be a better person. He was like, I mean, back in those days, he was the person who was a motivator and gave these motivating lectures. He had a saying: tell the audience what you're going to say it, and then tell them what you have said. Okay, so again, tell the audience what you're going to say it, and then tell them what you have said. Okay, in presentations, we can interpret this as in presentations, we can interpret this as, it means that your presentation shouldn't just give information. You also need to show people how your information is organized. Okay, it's not, like I said before, organization structure. Okay, you should always tell people, for example, I'm going to do this, then this, and then this. Oh, okay. So now I know what you're going at, or now I know what's going to happen next, or now I know how this is going to finish. Because if you're just going to swing it to see what happens, then you're probably going to fail. Okay, your presentation is probably not going to be a boring one, a bad one. Okay, so you need to prepare. And to be able to do this in presentations, there is a technique that is called the signposting language. A signpost is this. This is a signpost. A signpost tells you where to go, where you're at, how far you are from some place. Okay, it gives you directions. It tells you, for example, the signpost in the streets, it tells you where you're at. Okay, I am in the corner of Javier Prado and Arequipa Avenue. That's where you're at. If you go this way, then you're probably going to go either to La Molina, or to the other way, you're going to go to maybe Jesus Maria. If you have Arequipa Avenue, if you go this way, you're probably going to go to downtown Lima, or if you go the other way, you're going to go to Miraflores. Okay, so signpost tells you where you are and where you can go. Signposting language is it's a technique. Well, more than technique is it's a way of improving your organization in your presentations. Okay, so let's begin, and let's see. Yes, let's begin. We still have enough time. Signposting language, using words and phrases to show the audience where your points begin and end, to show what's coming next, and to remind them about things you have talked about before. Okay, so this is basically what signposting language does. Okay, it uses words or phrases to show the audience where your points begin and end, and to show what's coming next, and to remind them about things you've talked before. Example. Okay, that covers the new policies. Next, I'd like to move on and discuss what these policies mean to you. Okay, I just did this, and now I'm going to do this. So I'm letting you know. I'm giving you the information, the directions, like a map. Now that you've heard a bit about what not to do, let's focus on positive advice to help you be more effective salespeople and close more of your leads. Again, I've told you this, I've just finished this, and now I'm going to do this. Okay, so I'm telling you what I've talked before and what I'm going to do next. When you say something like this, you aren't giving people information about the topic of your presentation. Instead, you're showing people where you are and where you're going next, okay? So in this part, I'm not giving you any new info. I'm just telling you, okay, we just finished this. This is the next thing we're going to do, okay? So people aren't lost. So people will just like, oh, we'll just put the ideas in correct order in their mind, okay? So this is a technique that is, or this is language that is very relevant. Now, some templates to move from one point onto the next. Next, I'd like to talk about, let's move on and discuss. At this point, I'd like to turn to, so this is language that you can use to go from one topic or one point to the next point. To add detail to an idea, let me go into some more detail about, let's examine in more depth. I would like to elaborate on, okay, so when I hear this, my mind or the listener, right? Oh, he's going to give me more information. The same as with the first one. Me, the listener. Next, I'd like to talk about, oh, my mind immediately changes. Okay, so now a new topic. Okay, so with these words, I can prepare the listener to what's coming next or what I'm doing. And finally, to show that you finish your main point and you've reached your conclusion. To wrap up, let's remind ourselves of why this should be a matter to everyone, why this should matter to everyone here. Let's review the key points from this session. So, you've heard what I have to say. What conclusions can you take away from this? So with these expressions, oh, he has finished. Okay, I know that he's not going to say anything else. Okay, the listener hears this and his mind immediately says, okay, it's done. Okay, so with these expressions, you prepare the listener to, again, you're not giving him information, you're just letting him know where you are at, where you were, and what's coming next. Using signposting language to move between points, to show when you're giving a summary or going into more detail, and to signal that you have reached a conclusion, okay? So you use signposting language to move between points, to show when you're giving a summary or when you're going to give more detail, and finally, when you have reached your conclusion. Okay, well, it's basically three. Move between points, give summaries or more details, and to say that you have reached a conclusion. Okay, so here are some templates that you can use when you prepare your presentations. Now, the last topic is problems during a presentation. I mean, this happens to everyone. The people with more experience, the people with least experience. Common problems, you might forget where you are or forget an important word. You might realize that you said something wrong or didn't explain something clearly. You might forget to mention something important, and someone might ask you an awkward or a strange question, which you have no idea how to answer. This has happened to me more than once. And I remember when I first began teaching, an instructor of mine told me, I remember I made a mistake in putting something on the board, and I realized it, and immediately I went to change it. And when I changed it, my students realized my mistake. And at the end, when my instructor gave me my feedback, he told me, It was correct for you to change it, but I would recommend that you wait for them to be doing an activity and then correct it, because your students hadn't even realized you had made that mistake. They just noticed it when you made the correction. Okay, so it's important to know how to correct things and when to correct things and how to correct things, because you might expose yourself. Okay, everybody can make mistakes, like they say in the TikTok. Everybody can make mistakes. Okay, so possible solutions, cue cards. Cue cards are these little papers where you have all the information, right? But this is basically for key information or vocabulary. It's not going to be for your structure, because imagine a structure, you'll have a map. Now we have filler phrases, okay? If you lose your place and you can't remember what to say next, it's better to keep talking rather than just standing there in silence. If, for example, you forget a word or you forget something you have to say, imagine you're like, no, you need to say something. These are filler phrases, okay? Where was I? Where was I? And somebody's going to say, oh, you were saying this. Oh, okay, thank you. Or, so what was I saying? Because imagine that you, for some reason, something happens and you lose track, and something happens and you forget where you were. So what was I saying? Somebody's going to tell you the answer. Okay. Or for example, what's that word in English again? So these are filler phrases to avoid silent moments, to avoid moments where of silence that are awkward and look very unprofessional. So you can say expressions like these. There are many other, but I mean, these are some common ones. Just Google filler phrases and you'll find a dictionary of filler phrases that you can use. Next, if you make a mistake or realize you didn't explain something well, you could say, let me rephrase that. Okay, so you are changing, okay, you are changing the information, but you don't say, oh, I made a mistake. Okay, you say, okay, let me rephrase that. So when you rephrase it, you correct it. Actually, what I meant to say, again, you don't say, oh, I'm sorry, forget what I just said. I mean, no. Actually, what I meant to say is, and you correct it. You don't even go back to the mistake that you make. To clarify what I wanted to say, that, so when you use these expressions, you don't have to say, you don't have to acknowledge the mistake. You don't even have to mention it again. Don't even mention it. You just continue. But after these expressions, you make the correction. In this way, you can correct yourself without admitting you have made a mistake. Okay? Again, don't ever acknowledge the mistake. Okay? Correct it. Of course, you need to correct it, because if you make a mistake, and because you're afraid of recognizing the mistake, then the people who are listening to you, who trust you, who are the professional, the person who has the experience, and you don't correct your mistake, then they're going to take this mistake with them and they're going to acknowledge it and use it. And they're this like it's like a virus. Your mistake is going to continue on. Okay, this happens in English a lot when people say, for example, you have the word pear and you pronounce it like peer, and then everybody says peer, 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 peer. Okay, or when students say, I am agree, and nobody corrects it, him or her, then he will continue to say I am agree for many years, because he trusts in the person who's teaching him or her. So if you make a mistake, you need to correct it, yes, but never say, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No, use expressions like the ones here. Next, if you realize you forgot to mention something important, you phrase it like this. Again, this is still a mistake, but this is a mistake for omission. You forgot to say it, okay? Not that you gave the wrong information. Let me just add one more thing. I'd like to add something to a point we discussed earlier. Let me return to an earlier point briefly. So you are correcting your omission. So these are two different things. One is you gave the wrong information and you want to correct it. And the second one, you omitted something and you want to include it. Okay, this allows you to correct your mistake in a confident way, so you look like you're in control. Again, it's all a matter of confidence. Okay, it's all a matter of confidence. And to finish, if someone asks you a difficult question, which you can't answer, you can do three things. First, delay. You can delay giving an answer to gain time to think. For example, you can say something like, I've allocated time for questions at the end of the session, so we'll address your idea later. Okay? So that means that, okay, I don't know what to say right now, but I'll answer you later. And in the meantime, I'll be thinking what I want to say. I'm not in the position to answer that right now, but I'll get back to you later this week. Okay, so again, you are not saying, I don't know. You never say I don't know. You should never say I don't know. You should use other expressions, to give you time to think. Teachers use it all the time. Bosses use it all the time. Okay, it gives you time to look up the answer or to investigate. Next, instead of delay, you can deflect. You can deflect the question by asking a question back, or maybe by asking the audience members what they think. Okay, so for example, do you think this is correct? Okay, so you are deflecting. You are deflecting the question. It's like you're sending. It's like tennis. You gotta, somebody served you a very fast ball, and I mean, you don't know what to do, but you just try to hit it back. Okay, that's an interesting question. Before I answer, I would like to know, what is your take on this? I have no idea what the answer is. I want you to tell me what the answer is. Okay, but I'm not letting you know. I'm not saying, I don't know. Can you tell me? No. So before I answer, what is your take? So the person normally is going to say, well, I think, oh, and then that gives you time. You've raised an important point there. What does everyone else think about this? So again, I mean, I don't want to tell you that you should always answer questions like this, but this, in case you don't know what to say, it gives you time to think or to organize your ideas. But you're not delaying the question; you're just deflecting it. Okay, you're not saying I'll answer you later. You're just saying, okay, um, you tell me what it is. And finally, it's to dismiss. If the question is totally irrelevant because you're going to meet people like this in your presentations, then you just dismiss it. You just, okay, next. Okay, thanks for your input, but I don't see how that is connected with what I'm saying. Okay, I don't mean to be blunt, but I don't think that's relevant to today's discussion. Okay, so I mean, hopefully this doesn't happen, or if it happens very, very few times, but it will happen. Sometimes you're talking about economics and people ask you about health. I mean, and of course you're not going to know the answer because you have not prepared anything about health. So you say, okay, thank you, but I don't see how that's connected with what I'm saying. Thanks. And you just move on. You continue with your presentation. Or for example, if you're talking about HR topics and somebody mentions in something about politics, and of course you're not prepared to answer the question because your topic was HR. So you say, I don't mean to be blunt, but I don't think how that is relevant with what we're talking right now. Thank you. And you continue with your life or with your presentation. So you don't need to answer some questions. You don't need to answer all the questions because if they're not relevant, there's no need for you to invest time in it. But so remember, in case you have a difficult question, you can delay, you can deflect, or you can dismiss. The 3 Ds: delay, deflect, or dismiss. Very well. So this has been a topic for today. The next topic is going to be, again, presentations, but now we're going to be, well, the topic is going to be changed to being lively and persuasive, okay? And some expressions that we can use to do this, okay? So if there are no questions, either on Zoom and on Facebook, I want to wish you all a great Monday. Again, I know these are hard times for our country, difficult times, stressful and uncertain times. But the best thing we can do is support the people. If we can't go out and express and help physically, there are other ways of helping and presenting your thoughts. I mean, I don't think anybody who's anybody would be inactive or say, okay, this is not, I mean, I have better things to do. No, this affects us all. And if you are a parent and if you are if you care about your country, you're going to make your voice heard in whatever way is possible. Social media, physically going there, teaching your children why this is important, okay? So I don't want to get too much into that, but thank you again for listening to me. Thank you for your time, and I will see you on Wednesday. Okay, so thanks. Have a great morning and have a great week. See you on Wednesday, hopefully after we win Argentina. Bye-bye.